Night number 3, tearing apart the old silver car here. Going to start tearing apart the whole rear end tonight. So, got the transmission out last night and the engine out and torn apart the night before. So, time to keep trucking along. It's going to be fun. I really hope everything comes apart nice. It all has been coming apart good so far. Also, I had to take the one lower control arm out, and I think I came up with an idea of why my roll pins are all messed up like they are, and I can't get this one out because it's all like bent and just, it's like shattered almost. Me and a coworker were talking about it, and I'm thinking when my car was slammed, it was actually putting pressure inward on it, and I ended up jamming those up because this car was really binding and not happy when I had it slammed earlier this spring. So that could be my consequence and punishment for doing that. That's definitely not why the trans broke. That is still all separate, but yeah, that is my conclusion of why the transmission roll pins are messed up. And we just know this is messed up because of how I treat it. So yeah, time to get the rear diff out and hopefully the diff support. So just get to trucking. Just like that, we got a diff laying on the ground on this side, and I got the front diff support laying on the ground on this side. So that is basically 90% of my disassembly, I think. All that's left is removing the bushings from this, the diff, shifter linkage bushings, transmission mount, but I still gotta wait for some of that stuff to come in the mail. So yeah, we can actually start doing cleanup and start doing slight reassembly now. So very exciting. Salvage yard should have me my short block next week sometime, so plenty of time to get the whole rear end put together and transmission in here. That way we, end of next week, hopefully we can slap the engine together and toss her in here and get to ripping this thing in just a couple weeks. So looking forward to it. Day 4, I think. I took a day off, so yeah, I think I'm on to day 4 now of tearing my car apart. The whole drivetrain is out. Subframe, or not subframes, engine, trans, diff, front subframe mounts. Yeah, so I'm gonna just keep going. I still gotta pull the rear knuckles off, the front knuckles off. I got lower ball joints to go in the front knuckles, new rear control arm bushings for the lower control arms, new rear wheel bearings are going to be going in it, so all that's got to come off of it. And I'm taking the coilovers back off it for the winter. I kind of like putting the car back on factory struts for the winter. It makes the car way more enjoyable to drive, and once you see the setup it goes on, the factory height suits it very well. So I'm just going to leave the winter setup as a teaser, unless you've followed me on social media and you know what my winter setup is for this car. So that's going to be a little bit of a teaser because it looks really good. So going to get to trucking along so this thing can get wrapped up quick, hopefully. I want this done in another 2 weeks, so that would be cool. That's my plan, that's my goal. We're going to keep trucking along and see what happens with that. So enjoy me tearing more of my car apart. Okay, front and rear knuckles fully off the car. Obviously the whole rear suspension, lower control arms in the front. It is time to start replacing bushings, I think. I've already got the T-brace up in the vise there, so I think I'm going to do that one first, and then I'll move on to putting these lower control arm bushings on. So gonna be fun. Hopefully these things come out good, but you can just see how much flex is in them. Be nice to get these poly bushings in there and stiffen this thing up. Alright, brand new diff bushings are in the front diff support. My used but good, what company? White Line. Geez, I pulled a blank here. My used but good White Line Racing lower control arm mounts are on my control arms, so that's all good to go. Those can get bolted back on the car. Diff support could even go back in the car. It really kills me that I am not gonna wire wheel this and get this painted. It's not bad, it's just everything's flaking off of it right now, and I will be undercoating this after it goes back in, but sadly just don't have the right means of being able to paint it right now. It's too cold outside. Don't quite have the room in the shop to set up something to paint something like this in. Little parts are different, but a big item like this is a little harder to paint right now. Same thing with like the rear subframe. Like I'd love to pull the rear subframe out and completely clean that up. Like it's really sad how much rust this car is gaining over the few years I've owned it, but it is what it is. This car is going to get a full restoration once the white car is done. It's really funny how all my projects work, because this here is, I consider this one my nicest car out of the three of them. Like, yes, this one's swapped and I have all the time into it, but this is like my favorite one. It's bone stock for now. You know, we're gonna leave it like that for quite a while, but stock body, just, it's in good shape. It's got the least amount of rust out of the three of them. So I really just want to do a proper full restoration on this one once this one's done. And what I was getting to with that, though, the green car is like my practice car for this one, and then this one is like my practice car for this one, because this one's getting a full wide body, so I don't have to do as much nice body work. The over fenders are going to take care of the seams and all that, but this one's going to be all the body work. I'm keeping stock body, so everything that I fix is going to be possibly noticeable if I don't do it right. So all my cars is kind of a big practice sheet for the next one, but it's nice to see this car finally getting the love it's needed. It's like I've figured out my suspension recipe on this car with all the bushings and everything, so it's nice to just be able to know what I need to order and do for this one. Same with the drift car. It's just takes a lot of headache out of stuff. I don't really have to figure any of it out. I already know what I got to do. So heck yeah, I think about all I might do yet tonight is drill out the rear subframe diff bushings and get those in. Other than that, probably gonna call it there for the night and hopefully start installing a few odds and ends here tomorrow and the next day. Alrighty, picking up right where we left off. Gonna continue on rear diff bushings. The front diff support's all done. The lower control arm bushings are done. Time to get the rear diff bushings that are in the subframe drilled out and pound out the sleeves for those. These ones are going to be a little bit more of a bugger just because the subframe's in it. I don't know, I'm kind of debating on taking the subframe out. I'm not too far away from it, and I also have subframe lock bolts for this, so it'd be easier. I might actually just take the subframe out. We'll see what happens. So I might start trying without taking the subframe out. I don't really remember how much is left. It might actually be just the bolts for the subframe, so maybe I will fuck around and find out. Drop it out of here quick, and then at least I can get the bolts anti-seized. So I think that will be my plan. I'm going to take the subframe out anyway. I will feel much better getting, if those bolts come out, if. I've been lucky, all of my cars, all the bolts that I hear about breaking on other GCs have come out of all my cars. So this is the last one that they'll hopefully come out. And the rear diff, the rear subframe is the last 4 bolts that are kind of unknown because the control arm bolts all came out, the diff support bolts came out, and hell, even these little plates came out for the ones that go into the side of the pinch welds up here, which is amazing because the other 2 don't do that. We're not going to talk about it, but yes. So yeah, I might as well just get trucking on that, get it dropped out of here, and it'll be much easier to get those bushings in with it sitting up here on my bench. So might as well do her. Well, I do gotta say, that went a lot better than I expected. New bushings are in, and they definitely look very nice compared to the subframe. And I know a lot of you are probably gonna think that this is trashed, but it's still very solid. You might have seen me in the time lapse. I was going over it and just kind of, hitting it with my pick, just hitting at all the bubble and rust, making sure that it doesn't go through it, and I can't find a spot where it goes through, so it's gonna be good. There's nothing to worry about with it. I'm going to definitely find this car a rust-free subframe when I do restore it, so this just helps me figure out what parts I need to get for it in a couple of years. So for now, it's going to be fine. New bushings, though, are going to be a huge upgrade compared to the old ones. You can obviously no longer move them by hand. The older ones you can take and you can just flop the middle bushing, or the bushing, or I don't know, whatever you want to call it. You can just flex it all by hand, and it's not good. So this is going to feel so nice to have this car nice and solid. So yeah, I will say, and it is actually hard to believe, but I had this car completely undercoated back when I first got it, and it's really sad that this was supposed to have the complete package from the place I was working for, and it's nothing against my old place of business, but the kid who did it just did not care at all, and he really didn't undercoat any of the parts that should have been undercoated on this car, because this whole subframe should be a nice gooey mess, because like my T-brace, you can see on the side here, this is all old undercoating. That's all undercoating that the dirt is stuck to. It's a fluid film, but that's what the top and this whole subframe should look like, and it sadly doesn't. So I'm going to make sure I get it good and undercoated myself once I put it back in. I have the same stuff that it was supposed to be undercoated in here, so just have some spray cans of it. I'm going to make sure this gets nice and fully covered so that it will protect it as much as it possibly can. So